Thank you very much for the words of welcome, and now it is my great pleasure to introduce Ms. Věra Jourová, the Vice President of the European Commission for Values and Transparency, and ask her to deliver her opening remarks. Madam Jourová, the floor is yours.
Dear Minister Lipavsky, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests, I would like, of course, to start by thanking you for giving me the opportunity to address you today and thus contribute to the setting of the tone for the next 2 days. The Prague European Summit is always an important occasion during which debates on a number of key questions are held, and this time it will not be different. I see that the program includes such topics as EU support to Ukraine, the future of global trade, energy security, European competitiveness, the enlargement process, or the EU's security and defense policy. These discussions could not come at a more pertinent time than this week, just a few days after millions of Europeans voted in the European Parliament elections and thus launched the new EU institutional cycle. The new leadership of the EU institutions, which will emerge over the next few weeks, will have to define its priorities for the coming years, and I believe that high-level exchanges such as those here in Prague at the Prague European Summit can contribute to these reflections on future priorities. Before I look a bit into the future, however, allow me to look back briefly at the election and the campaign that preceded it. The European Parliament elections last week showed us, once again, how important it is to make sure that those who vote do so based on information and facts, and not disinformation and foreign interference. We are not defenseless. We are the most advanced when it comes to tools to deal with this threat. I started a so-called democracy tour before elections in Europe to understand how well EU countries, authorities and experts are prepared to digital threats to democracy and security. The tour brought me also to California because the big tech has a tremendous role to play as well. What is being done in the US has a big impact in Europe. My tour and the actual election process reassured me to a certain degree, but also showed me how much there is still to do. I was reassured because indeed the legislation, the additional tools, as well as the increased awareness that we have put in place over the last years are bringing results. What I have in mind by the tools, especially the European Democracy Action Plan, among the legislative acts, the Digital Services Act and the Code of Practice play important role. Also the pledges of the European political parties ahead of the election regarding conduct. There are many other tools, and I believe that we had sufficient results by deploying all these tools before the elections. But it is also clear that more needs to be done. New challenges are emerging. For example, the possibility to abuse artificial intelligence in the campaign, and those who want to manipulate and threaten our democracies are constantly looking for new avenues of doing so. This is why I believe that defending our democracy, protecting it, needs to be one of the main priorities of the next European Commission. And I was therefore very happy to hear my boss, and hopefully also the future President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, calling for a so-called democracy shield. I will have still a chance to equip her with data analysis and information which I collected over the several years. But the new Commission will also have other tasks on the table. At this time of increased uncertainty, it will have to consolidate the EU's place in the changing global geopolitical landscape. This means investing more in defense and security. This also means going ahead with enlargement. This means working closely with our like-minded partners and defending our interests more assertively vis-à-vis our rivals, using all the tools that we have at our disposal. The elections have also made it clear that our citizens are worried about the economic situation in Europe. The next European Commission will have to do all it can to improve the European competitiveness and resilience by pursuing the economic security agenda, by reducing our dependencies in critical sectors, by investing in research and new technologies, by taking seriously the deregulation agenda so as to lessen the regulatory burden and in particular on small and medium enterprises, by concluding trade agreements that promote EU's interests. And of course, the EU will have to make sure that its budget and its institutions are up to all of these tasks that I have just mentioned, including enlargement. And so the next EU multi-annual budget will need to address all these challenges and the reflection process on possible reforms of the decision-making processes and internal structures without necessarily or at all requiring treaty changes. It will have to continue, and the new budget will become one of the main tasks for the new representation very soon. As I said at the beginning, I am pleased to see that most, if not all, of these topics appear also on the agenda of the Prague European Summit. I wish you very fruitful and inspiring discussions. Thank you very much.